Now welcome guys back to the channel. Today's video is gonna get real slippery. Yes, let's talk a little bit about the phenomenon of aquaplanning, or in other words, let's go ahead and do some runway overruns today. I think this is gonna be a pretty interesting video. Now what is aquaplanning actually? Aquaplanning, or also known as hydroplaning, I think the term hydroplaning is used a little bit more, basically means that there is standing water on a runway, or snow if you will, and that standing water on the runway causes a moving wheel of an aircraft that, for example, lands or takes off or just in general moves to lose contact with the actual runway itself, meaning that it just doesn't touch the runway anymore, which basically translates the stopping performance of the aircraft to being very, very bad. Or in other words, the brake just don't work, and if you have bad luck, you actually end up overrunning the runway, because obviously you couldn't brake in time. But whatever, we don't care about the theory stuff. Let's actually do some practical landings, right? Let's now land on a wet runway. Now, in order for a runway to be wet, we have to have some kind of rain. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Let's get some big storms in here, and let's also get the runway wet. There we go. This is gonna be pretty interesting. All right, here we are approaching the airport of Nice, actually, in south of France, with some very, very bad weather. Oh damn. Might be a little weird for Malaysia Airlines to operate a 737 MAX 10 at this airport. That's another story. Now about this landing itself, I think the actual landing part will be the hardest thing about this one. Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of too lazy to turn on the windshield wipers, but alright, now touchdown. That was quite nice. Alright, we have touched down. Let's see what's gonna happen any second. Let's actually try braking with the wheels, and as you can see, it's not really doing anything, is it? I mean, we're losing some speed, obviously, because we have no power, but this is definitely not enough to stop. In order to stop, we would have to activate the reverse thrusters, which is obviously the normal procedure anyway, so no worries. Go. The actual problem is also controlling the aircraft on ground as well. Alright, that worked out. But yeah, this was definitely not a very comfortable landing. We almost used the whole runway and we haven't stopped yet. But one thing, don't worry about landing on wet runways. Hydroplaning only starts happening if the water is like above half of the tires, I think, when it comes to height. So not any landing on a wet runway is necessarily an aquaplaning landing. No, just because there's aqua and plane, it doesn't mean that there has to be aquaplaning. As you can see, this Air Berlin 737 landing at Corfu, which is an airport that we have checked out before. It's kind of interesting. As you can see, the water level is not extremely high, not super duper bad. Obviously, the landing looks very spectacular, but it's not super duper dangerous. You know, on a wet runway like this, you know, when it's just slightly wet. In a case like this, the stopping distance will only be increased by a little bit, but it's not super duper bad, and it won't necessarily result into an overrun. But here, in a severe case of water on the runway, you cannot really see it. It's not very well displayed here in the sim, but let me just tell you, there is a lot of water on this runway. Let's actually move on to a bigger plane that needs a lot more stopping distance anyway. Let's see if it still works here. Let's actually remove the storm component and only have a wet runway itself. Make this a little easier. Let's get a wet runway in here again. Let's do some water skiing now. I mean, yeah, aquaplaning is basically water skiing. You're basically skiing on that water above the runway. You're not really touching the runway itself. That is pretty much the thing. Let's do exactly that now. Oh, we don't have very good visibility here, but whatever. There we go, that is a landing for you. Very nice. Let's actually try using the wheel brakes now. They do have some effect, but it doesn't really work that well. You obviously need reverse thrust. I don't like that there's not much animation here. I kind of miss that here. But there we go. We have also stopped in this case too. There we go. I think we're gonna stop anyway. Looking good. Pretty nice, huh? And there we go. That was a successful stop as well. Now let's go to a shorter runway to make this a little bit more interesting. You know, we always fly at short runways on this channel, so kind of fits in quite well, doesn't it? Alright, now let's land at La Mole in also the south of France, actually. That is a very interesting airport. I'm pretty sure that its runway will even get more interesting with some water on it, right? Try to land on that one as well. Gonna be pretty interesting. Now, in normal conditions, you know, with a dry runway, the 777, it can stop at this runway very easily. Let's see what happens if the runway is wet, which it is right now. Ooh, that was not good. Oh, this plane won't stop. Jesus, it doesn't stop at all, actually. That is not good. Yep, no, this was not a happy landing at all. Alright, yeah, normally the 777, it can stop here very easily. Let's try a smaller plane, the 737. Let's see if that one can land here. I do not doubt it. At least I hope it can, right? The Max 10 again, let's go ahead. Alright, Max 10, let's do this. This time around the weather isn't too bad, so that won't bring us down, I guess. But yeah, I gotta say that the runway is in a pretty abnormal state right now. Oh yeah, it is pretty wet. Actually, this one has a wet appearance as well. It looks pretty interesting. Alright. Alright, pretty firm touchdown, but that is actually required on a wet runway, you know, to decrease the chances of having an aquaplanning. And, oh my goodness. Alright, yeah, that didn't work out. That was actually a pretty disappointing failure. Jesus Christ, that really didn't work. Turns out that aquaplanning is nothing to mess with, especially not on the wet runway. Definitely not. That was really not good. RIP, I guess. You really do not want to mess with wet runways, especially if you're in a plane that doesn't have reverse thrusters, right? I just noticed that. You know, how do you stop in a plane like the Cirrus Vision Jet then? I mean, that one really does not have reverse thrusters. It also doesn't have any speed brakes. The only brakes that it effectively has are the wheel brakes. I think this is gonna be a very interesting landing as well. Alright, we now have clear blue skies, but the problem is now, again, our runway is wet. Will we be able to stop? I think so. I mean, this is obviously not as fast as something like the 737. Oh my god, what the fuck? That was my phone. Was about to call the police for some reason. Let's establish a firm touchdown as well. Nice. Alright, let's engage the brakes, which it does kind of work a little bit, but I think again we're getting pretty close to the actual end of the runway. Not very comfortable, but this one worked. Obviously this is a way smaller plane. We're landing at a speed of 80 knots. It's obviously a lot easier to stop this one here. And there we go. You know, at speeds below 30 miles per hour, which is like 50 kilometers per hour, if you go under that, then you won't have aquaplanning. You know, it's pretty much just like water skiing. You need to have a specific speed in order not to be able to touch the runway, but the water, right? Which is why taxiing this plane to the actual ramp will not be an issue. You know, steering this plane on the ground, that is no issue here. So that makes sense, I guess. But yeah, what have we learned today? Wet runways can be a problem, but they don't have to be necessarily. Only if there's enough water on the runway, then you're actually gonna run into some issues. So yeah, guys, thank you for watching today's video, and I'll see you most probably tomorrow. As always, good night.